everyone, I am Nikki Hinkle. I am Diamond Ambassador at Plexus Worldwide. I want to talk to y'all tonight about shame, vulnerability, and scarcity. So they're not topics that are oftenly talked about, but I think it is very, very important in order to move your business to the next level, not just your business, but your life. And so before I start this, I want to give the credit to Brene Brown. She's the author of Daring Greatly and Rising Strong. She's one of my favorite authors, and I love to listen to her TED Talks and all of her. She's got some great videos out there. So if you're familiar with her work and you hear anything throughout this video tonight that sounds familiar to you, it probably is quotes from her. So I'm going to go ahead now and give the credit to her. So the first thing I want to talk to y'all about tonight is shame. So the definition of shame is feeling unloving, feeling unworthy of love and belonging. If you put shame in a petri dish and you douse it with secrecy, silence, and judgment, it grows exponentially. So if you feel unworthy of love and belonging, and you continue to keep those feelings silent, and you continue to judge yourself, and you continue to stay in secrecy, that shame that you are feeling is just going to grow and grow and grow. But if you put shame in a petri dish and you douse it with vulnerability and empathy, it will die. It won't survive. Shame for most of us is this web of unattainable, conflicting expectations that are self-brought onto ourselves that we feel like we have to live up to. It can be a straitjacket to us, and it can be debilitating. It can hold you back in your business and in so many things because you have these expectations put on yourself and you're not able to live up to them. And because of that, you feel shameful and then you feel stuck. Now, when we're talking about shame, I don't want you to confuse shame with guilt. They're very, very different feelings. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am bad. Guilt triggers change. It makes you want to make amends when you feel guilty. You tend to do things differently from your guilt. Where shame, it's the enemy of change. We like to wallow in it. We stay there, and it keeps us from making change in what is bringing upon this shame on us, because instead it grows and grows and grows. So how do we get out of this cycle of being stuck in shame, and how do we move our team out of this cycle also? One of the most important keys to move out of shame is vulnerability. So what is vulnerability? It is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. So I want to ask you, when you think of being vulnerable yourself, when you think of emotionally exposing yourself, do you think of weakness? Most people's answer to that is yes. That is usually, if it's the first time they thought about vulnerability, they think it's weak to admit where I am not strong, to admit what I am not good at. And yet when we see vulnerability in others, it looks like courage. So remember that it is when you are sharing something that to the outsider, they're not looking at you, look and see weakness. They're seeing courage, and you're inspiring them. Vulnerability is the birthplace of joy, love, belonging, creativity, faith, innovation, and change. If you think about all of these things, they are impossible without vulnerability. You cannot love somebody without being vulnerable and them being vulnerable with you. You can't have creativity without being vulnerable and doing work that is different and putting your work out there. You can't have faith without believing in a higher power that is unseen. It takes the vulnerability to believe in something that you can't see. All of these things, vulnerability is an important part of their being. Foreboding joy is a symptom of losing our capacity for vulnerability. When we stop being vulnerable, we tend to forebode joy. And what foreboding joy means is, it's kind of like when you don't want to count your chickens before your eggs hatch. It is feeling compelled to beat vulnerability to the punch because you're afraid that vulnerability is going to hurt you. When you're vulnerable and you allow yourself to feel, you're not just going to allow yourself to feel good, you're also going to allow yourself to feel hurt. So foreboding joy is not allowing yourself to feel hurt. It's being guarded and putting your wall up It's saying it's easier to live disappointed than to feel disappointment. It's assuming we won't hit a rank one month, so we don't push for it at all, because it's easier to not tell our upline and our sideline and our friends, hey, I'm going to hit gold, and then see us fail. We don't want them to see us fail, so it's easier just to not push for it at all and to stay where we're at. It's comfortable. And this is the person also who says, I don't want to join your team because I don't believe in network marketing, when really the heart of it is they don't want to join their team because they're afraid they won't succeed. They see your success and they think the market's saturated. That can't happen to me now because I didn't get in the right time. It's fear of failure. So your goal as a leader and as an ambassador in Plexus is to help people move past this foreboding joy. It's to help people feel vulnerability instead. So what you're trying to do here is we have to figure out, why do we have an intolerance for vulnerability? Why are we scared of it? Why does it feel like weakness? What keeps us off from not constantly being vulnerable? If vulnerability gives us joy and love and belonging and innovation, why don't we all live like that all the time? And one of the major things that holds us back from this is scarcity. We live in a culture where we are not enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not a good enough leader. I'm not a great speaker at all, so I can't be successful at this. I don't do training calls every week. I'm not doing, we're constantly thinking about what we are not. I am not extraordinary enough. An ordinary life isn't enough. And that thought, those feelings of scarcity can be crippling to your business and to your life. And I'm going to get spiritual with y'all for a second. I'm going to share a story. I heard this at church a few months back in the spring. A lady was speaking to us that runs a charity in my town called Mercy House. And she was on a mission trip this last spring in the slums in Nairobi, Kenya. And she was walking down the streets in the Nairobi slums, and a boy invites her into his home. And she said that she described him as, she thought he looked like he was around 10 years old. And he was in the home with 3 younger siblings, and it was an orphaned home. So he was the head of this household, of this home. And I think of my son, who is 11, and he has 3 younger siblings. And imagine him running the home by himself. And I mean, I can't even imagine it. And here he was, the head of the household. And she walks in and she painted the picture of this home to us. She said the floors were mud. And in the corner was a hole they had dug that they used as the toilet. And in another corner, they had a bowl, and it looked like maybe a pot. And you could tell that was where they ate, and they made their meals at over there. And that was their only belongings. That's all they had. So this is the greatest picture of scarcity that you can imagine. And this boy was standing there in front of her, smiling from ear to ear, just full of joy and as happy as can be. And she said, in a moment of complete brokenness, she just said to him, "Why are you so happy? You have nothing." And he replied to her, "Ma'am, I have Jesus." And I thought of this story, and even if you're not a believer, I want you to think of this story of this boy. It is the most perfect picture of vulnerability I can think of, because here he was. He had scarcity. We say we have scarcity, but he had scarcity. He had nothing. He had every reason to feel shame. But instead, he invited this white, rich, privileged woman into his home with pride and excitement. It is the most beautiful, pure picture of vulnerability I can imagine. And it's what we should all strive for. I can think of countless times, but one time stands out in particular for me, when someone knocked on my door, and I looked out the window and I knew who they were, and they were somebody I loved and cared for, and someone I would have loved to have sat and chatted with. And I didn't answer the door because I had a basket of clean laundry on my couch, of clothes that were not folded. I had toys all over the floor. There were probably Cheerios mixed upon them. Last night's dinner was on the stove, and you could smell that smell of last night's dinner throughout the house. And I felt shame, instant shame. I can't let her in. I can't let her see my house. And I didn't open the door. And I felt unworthy of her friendship in that moment, because scarcity told me you are not enough. And guys, let me tell you one other thing that scarcity tells you. It doesn't just tell you you are not enough. It tells you other people say you are not enough. And that is a lie. I prejudged her own feelings before I even gave her a chance to make a decision herself. I instantly thought, she's going to judge me. I'm not opening that door. And that is the lie that scarcity will tell us. It is the biggest liar that will not only destroy our businesses, it will destroy our lives. One quote that you will hear often with Plexus that I love is, comparison is the thief of joy. And tonight, as I was thinking about this, I realized one of the reasons why it's the thief of joy is because when we compare, we instantly think about our human scarcity, how we don't have enough of what they have, how we will never live up to this perfect picture they have painted. It's a thief because our reaction to scarcity is to shut the door. Don't let people in. Don't let them see the dirty dishes or the toys on the floor. Be guarded. That's what scarcity tells us. It steals our vulnerability, which, going back, what is vulnerability the birthplace of? It's a birthplace of joy, love, belonging, creativity, faith, innovation, and change. So if comparison is going to be the thief of joy, it's also the thief of love. It's the thief of belonging. It's the thief of creativity. Comparison is the thief of faith, of innovation, and change. It's the thief of all of these things that we need in our lives so desperately. And it is why it is so important to not compare ourselves to our sidelines as we see them succeed, to our uplines and our downlines. It's so important to stay focused and to remember to be excited for people when they succeed. That it can be one of the biggest hindrances on people's businesses is when they can't be happy for others' success because they are comparing and they're letting that scarcity come in. They're letting that shame come in and live in them. I want to end this kind of by talking to y'all about one of my favorite quotes by Theodore Roosevelt. It's The Man in the Arena. And as I read the words to this quote, I want you to really listen to what they're saying. There's so many amazing nuggets here, but I want you to listen to it. It is not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. Now, one of my favorite things about this quote is it's not about winning or losing. It's about showing up and being seen. It's about trying. And this is the definition of vulnerability at its finest. To show up and be seen, to put yourself out there, to give it all you have 100%. And there is only one certainty I can give you. If you're willing to show up and be seen and get in that arena and draw your sand in the line and say that I am really going to give this business a full shot. I am going to try it with all of my heart and I'm going to believe that I can do this. If you get in that arena, the only guarantee I can give you is that you will get your ass kicked. I wish I could promise you that guarantee was gold or senior gold or emerald. But I can't make that promise. All I can promise you is it will be hard. But it will be worth it because you're going to feel something. And it's better to put yourself out there and fail than never try at all. Now, there's one thing. If you don't get anything from this talk tonight, there's one thing I want you to remember. And you might need to write this on the mirror to remind yourself every day because it's something I have to remind myself often. But you're going to need to be able to say to the critics, if you're not willing to get in this arena with me and get your ass kicked with me, I am not interested in your feedback. Constructive criticism from someone in the arena is amazing and it's helpful and it can build your business. But from someone up in the cheap seats that's not willing to get in this arena with you, you don't need to hear the feedback. It's not the critic that counts. So I want to recap this with you for just a little bit because I know I kind of jumped from topic to topic here. So in the beginning, shame is that feeling of that you are unworthy of love and belonging. It's crippling. To move past shame, we require vulnerability, but it can be very difficult to be vulnerable because of feelings of scarcity. So what we're trying to do is figure out how to not have those feelings of scarcity by not letting that in. Don't let the critic count, not feeling less than, not comparing ourselves. Instead, I want you to focus on your strengths. Do what you love. Believe in yourself. Breathe life into yourself. Let the world know that you believe that you can do this. Find somebody that keeps you accountable, that you can be fully vulnerable with at all times. When you're discouraged, when you're excited, when you're happy, your whole, raw, real self. Have at least one person that you can fully share that with. This business is a journey, guys. It's not a race. And I'm so happy to be on this journey with all of you. Thank you.